when we administer the exam. And then the second portion is for the testing group to develop the questions that we will administer during the exam. So it does both aspects. So we will be pushing the third-party administration will do the administration of the exam. However, we will still maintain the development of the questions in-house.
Oh, good. That was my second question. Okay, very good. Thank you, Jason.
Welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee? Public comment. Rick, is there anybody care to comment from the public?
No public comment on this item.
Okay, great. So with that, we move on to agenda item I, the Administration Strategic Plan Update. The administrative strategic objectives begin on page 125 of your committee packet. I will once again turn this over to CSLB's Administration Chief, Mike Meliza, to provide an update. Mike?
Thank you, Chair. Again, page 125, we'll start with item 5.1. That item was to evaluate the use of in-house legal counsel to supplement current board counsel. We have a lot of work for our legal counsels. Happy to report that is completed. June 2018, Department of Consumer Affairs assigned a second part-time legal counsel to assist CSLB with Public Records Act's requests and subpoena workload. And from what I understand, that has been a tremendous help. So that item is completed. Moving on to 5.2, execute a memorandum of understanding, MOU, with the Workers' Compensation Insurance Rating Bureau to provide a program to the Contractor State License Board to track workers' compensation policies. That one has been completed. Staff met with the Workers' Compensation Insurance Rating Bureau in April and May 2019. A process has been developed to share public workers' compensation information regarding C39 roofing contractors that can be expanded to other classifications as necessary. So no formal MOU is deemed necessary at this time. So that item is completed. Moving on to item 5.3, provide training on progressive discipline process to assist managers and supervisors in addressing performance issues here at CSLB. That has been completed. CSLB managers and supervisors attended a 2-day performance management training that was provided by DCA back in October of 2019. So that's been done. Moving on to item 5.4, provide team building and leadership training for managers and supervisors to make the management team more effective. That has been completed on January 23rd and 24th of 2019. CSLB managers and supervisors participated in a 2-day leadership training class titled the 21st Century Executive Leadership Challenge. So it's a fantastic class. That item has been completed. Moving on to page 126, top of the page, item 5.5, research a special investigators series. This one has been completed. This one was a heavy lift. A classification study performed by CPS HR Consulting resulted in the reclassification of existing non-sworn enforcement representatives 1 and 2 to the special investigator classification. The sworn enforcement representative 1 and 2 to investigator, and the enforcement supervisor 1, 2 to the supervising special investigator classification to oversee both sworn and non-sworn staff. Again, a lot of work with this one. I want to commend our staff here, especially Ingrid Witowski-Sedlar, who manages our personnel office, Tanya Corcoran, our deputy chief registrar, who worked really, really closely with DCA, the Human Resources Division over there, with CalHR, with the unions. There's a lot of work that made this happen, and from what I understand, it's very much helped our enforcement division with their recruitment. We're getting very, very high quality candidates to fill these positions now, and I think it's when we're going to be able to retain our very skilled staff. So great report there. So that's been completed. Moving on to item 5.6, pursue salary differentials in regions with higher living costs. This kind of coincided with the previous item, and this has been completed. The study that CPS HR Consulting did recommended that we move to the special investigator classifications and not seek the salary differentials. So we just followed that recommendation, and everything's been working great. So that's been completed. Item 5.7, standardize human resource processes to increase efficiency in regards to personnel matters. And this is just a lot of administrative cleanup on our part here within my personnel staff. We're on schedule. The target date is now July 2021. Staff is in the process of creating a supervisory section for CSLB's intranet, and we're just going to have some online tools for our staff. Tools such as FAQs, frequently answered questions, and checklists will be uploaded to this section for supervisors to reference, so they can just get it whenever they need it. And of course, my staff will be there to help them out, but just additional tools that we can give them. So that's ongoing, but I don't see any problems with hitting that target date. Moving on to item 5.8, enhancing onboarding and orientation program for new staff, managers, and board members. We realize we fall short in a big way as far as orientation and onboarding for our new staff and all of the new board members. So we're working on that. We have a target date of February 2021, and this coincides with Public Affairs Objective 4.8, which I'm sure they'll be talking about later today. But it's on schedule. Staff is working with Public Affairs to develop content for our intranet. We're going to have some of these trainings and onboarding videos online, so that you can just, day one, or even before you even start, you can find out a little bit about our divisions, what CSLB does, roles here. So I'm very excited to see how that develops. Additionally, as I talked about earlier, we're establishing a mentorship career development steering committee. So that committee is working, and we're busy with that. So target date, February 2021, and I think we're going to be fine with that. Moving on to page 127, item 5.9, develop benchmarks for the hiring process in order to extend job offers and onboard new employees more quickly to avoid losing qualified candidates. The recruitment process for the state of California can be cumbersome, so we're just doing everything we can to streamline that process, and we've done that. We've mapped and documented the workflow of the current recruitment process to identify processing times and areas for more efficiency. The personnel staff worked very, very hard on that, and also working with the IT staff who helped us workflow that. And so yeah, that's been completed. And then the last item 5.10, review the budget quarterly to guide the board on resource allocation. I'm sure Stacey Paul, who's our budget manager, will talk more about that, but that's just an ongoing process. I know the state was moving to a different reporting system, Fiscal, and there were some issues about getting a lot of reports, but we're just continually reviewing the budget on a quarterly basis to help guide the board, you board members. And that's all I have to report as far as the strategic plan items for the administration division. If there's any questions, I could take that now.
Thank you for that, Mike. Are there any committee questions, suggestions? Hearing or seeing none? Rick, is there any public comment?
Yes, we do have one member of the public would like to ask a question. Mayra Gutierrez, if you can please go ahead and make your comment, please.
Oh, no, I don't want to.
Go ahead.
No.
Don't
I
be
don't know
shy.
how to ask her.
Well, yeah, okay, maybe I'll just jump in then, because she did actually send it to me as a chat message. So she's asked, her question has to go with regarding third-party testing. Who would be considered a third party, and how do you choose who the third party will be?
I'm not sure if this pertains to any of the strategic plan items. Probably in the for the IT.
Yes, this is Jason. I think that question refers back to the exam administration, third party, I believe.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay, so the selection of the third party vendor is done through a bid process. Currently, right now, our department already has a vendor on contract. We are evaluating current assessments of this vendor if it meets the needs of our testing administration.
Thank you. Mayra, is that okay? Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Oh, okay, terrific. Thank you. That's the only public comment we have at this point.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that question. So this concludes the executive committee's business for the day. After we adjourn the executive committee meeting, we will have a short break to transition to the enforcement committee meeting, which will be led by enforcement committee chair Kevin Albanese. Is there any further business to come before the committee? Seeing none, I adjourn this meeting. Was I on mute all that time?
No,
Oh, okay, good.
no, we could hear you.
You're fine.
All right, good morning, everybody. Do we want to just jump right into enforcement, I'm presuming?
I believe Dave said we were taking a short break.
Oh, I didn't hear that part. Okay.
Yeah, that's why. I don't know, you want to take a quick 10-minute break, 5-minute break?
I'll defer to the enforcement committee. If the enforcement committee is ready to go,
There you go.
and if staff's ready to go, I assume we get going, but if we need a break, let me know.
Can we do 5 minutes?
Sure, we'll call the meeting to order at, call it 10:10, 8 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, I have 10:10. Do we have everybody here that we need to have here? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm
Perfect.
here.
Yep.
Turn on our video.
All right, then I'm going to presume everybody is here that needs to be here. And good morning. The time is 10:10 a.m. I call to order the November 4th, 2020 Enforcement Committee meeting of the Contractors State License Board. I am Kevin Albanese, board member and Enforcement Committee chair. Please note that only board members who are members of the Enforcement Committee may participate in this committee meeting. Other board members who are in attendance may observe but cannot ask questions or participate in the discussion. Committee members, to mitigate any potential bandwidth issues, we ask that you we don't want to turn off video cameras, right, Rick?
No, the committee members should keep their cameras on.
Yeah, if you're on the committee, go ahead, keep your cameras on. Throughout the meeting, if you would like to comment, please use the raise your hand icon in the WebEx. If you need to unmute yourself and jump in if we don't see that. If you do raise your hand through the WebEx, you will also need to use that icon to lower your hand. Well, this is our first Enforcement Committee meeting of the new fiscal year. It's also the first committee meeting for 2 new board members. I'd like to welcome them at this time. Don Giarratano?
Giarratano.
Get that right?
Very good.
Giarratano. Don, who is from Palm Desert, was appointed by Governor Newsom this past August and is a specialty contractor member. Welcome, Don.
Thank you.
The other is Michael Mark. Michael is from Stockton and was appointed by the governor in September as a public member who represents labor. Welcome, Michael. Also joining us today is Registrar David Fote, Chief Deputy Registrar Tanya Corcoran, Enforcement Chief Missy Vickery, and our board legal counsel, Jason Hirado. At this time, we will do roll call, and Felice, can you take us through roll call, please?
Kevin Albanese,
Here.
Don Giarratano,
Here.
Diana Love, Diana,
She's on mute.
okay.
Can you hear me now? Here.
Michael Mark,
Here.
Marlo Richardson, Marlo, Johnny Simpson,
Here.
Nancy Springer,
Here.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful, Felice. Thank you so much. Next is agenda item B, our public comment section. This item is provided for public comment pertaining to items not on the agenda. To allow this committee enough time to conduct its full schedule of business, I will be limiting public comments to 3 minutes apiece. Please note that state law prohibits committee members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment. We are also not allowed to act on any item not on the agenda. If you would like the committee to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda of a future meeting. If you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. Committee members are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record of the case. If your comments are related to a specific agenda item, you can make your comments now, but you may want to wait until that item comes up for discussion. We will ask for public comment before acting on any item. To members of the public, if you joined us on WebEx and would like to make a comment at this time, either raise your hand or use the chat feature to send us a note that you would like to offer public comment. If you've joined us by phone and would like to make a public comment, please press *3 to raise your hand. This will be the same system throughout the meeting for public comment during each agenda item. Mr. Rick Lopes, congratulations on your departure. Bittersweet. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but I know I wasn't allowed to say that in the prior meeting. He is our moderator today, and he will be assisting us by moderating the public line. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address the committee or offer an agenda item at a future meeting?
Mr. Chair, no public comments at this time.
Fantastic. Do any committee members have an item that they would like to place on a future meeting agenda? Seeing and hearing none. The next is agenda item C. Please turn to page 139, as this is an update and discussion regarding our enforcement priorities. Particularly since we have 2 new board members joining us today, I'd like to give a summary of the state of the Enforcement Division. The Enforcement Division has been significantly impacted by budget restrictions, the pandemic, and wildfire disaster response. Staffing is a primary concern. The Enforcement Division currently has 25 vacancies. 17 enforcement staff have been redirected to contact tracing, and nearly 12 enforcement employees are working a reduced time base to address the demands of distance learning. This means a decrease in 48 enforcement positions available to address CSLB work. Given the excessive vacancies, a focus has been on filling the investigator positions. I am happy to report that since July 1st, 2020, conversion of enforcement representatives to special investigators, it is common for CSLB to receive 100 qualified applications per position versus the 3 to 5 received prior. Moving on to complaint prioritization. At the June 9, 2019 meeting of the board, the complaint prioritization guidelines printed in your packets was approved. Despite the process changes, the priorities addressing proactive and reactive complaints have remained unchanged. CSLB receives approximately 1,000 consumer filed complaints per month in one of the 2 intake and mediation centers, also called an IMC. The IMCs are staffed with program technicians and consumer service representatives, also called CSRs. To the new board members, you're going to learn there's a whole acronym library of all kinds of stuff, but nonetheless, there's your first 2, who triage the complaints. For less egregious complaints, the CSRs attempt mediation and are very successful. Between January 2020 and September 2020, the complaints settled in the Intake and Mediation Center, the IMC, resulted in over $16 million in restitution. Well done to the consumer representatives. For the non-egregious complaints with a financial injury of less than $10,000, the board approved a process change at the June 5th, 2020 meeting that would refer those complaints to an alternative dispute resolution, either to small claims court or to the surety bond for financial redress. Due to the decrease in incoming consumer complaint volume over the last 6 months, very likely attributed to the COVID-19, staff is able to use discretion when implementing this change, as consumers are generally not happy with this resolution. To date, only 37 complaints have had to have been referred to the alternative dispute resolution. The field investigators continue to conduct investigations into the more egregious complaints. In the early days of telecommuting due to COVID restrictions, enforcement leadership, in partnership with CSLB's Attorney General liaisons, conducted valuable training focused on remote interviewing techniques to ensure admissibility of the content into a hearing. Additional training provided by Cal OSHA was conducted in August of 2020, which focused on key COVID-19 prevention practices. Following the safety training, field investigators were given permission to return to the field depending on their comfort level. CSLB maintains a committed environment to working closely committed to working closely with industry partners, compliance organizations, and other state agencies to address contractor law violations in the public works arena. Complaints that result from larger commercial public works projects often include high priority violations, such as inappropriate licensure, misuse of construction funds, labor law violations, or workers' compensation avoidance. SWIFT, CSLB's proactive enforcement division, was disproportionately affected by the restrictions implemented due to COVID-19, as well as the redirection of many of the staff to conduct contact tracing, as mentioned earlier. During the time when fieldwork was discouraged, staff increased investigations into advertisements using online marketplaces and social media to identify and issue administrative citations. Further, SWIFT has been instrumental in working on the declared disaster areas that have been ravaged by wildfires during the 2020 season. As you can see in your packet, staff have partnered with local law enforcement and other state agencies to disseminate materials to homeowners and place signs warning the victims of the risk of unlicensed and predatory contractors. To conclude this section, several board members, myself included, have been looking forward to participating in outreach to the fire victims. Public affairs and enforcement staff have been working with state agencies and local government officials to develop rebuild seminars that will provide consumers with information beyond what is provided to them at a local assistance center, and to educate them about the home improvement contract provisions so they're better informed when entering into a contract with a licensee prior to rebuilding their homes. This outreach will provide information beyond checking the license and verifying the presence of a workers' compensation policy. While these are two very important components in choosing a contractor, CSLB hopes that this next level of education will empower the consumer in these fire zones to reduce further victimization of those impacted. I look forward to being a part of these seminars moving forward. A further summary of responsive efforts will also be covered in the public affairs meeting that follows. This is an informational item only. No action is required by the committee. Would any committee members like to comment on the status update of enforcement? Seeing and hearing none, is there any member of the public that would like to comment? Oh, Nancy Springer, you got something, Nancy?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to find a little hand to raise my hand. I just, on page 140, when you were speaking to the low routine, high urgent, the guidelines that we're using now for the different complaints, we said we would monitor that. So I'm just curious, is it possible to get a breakdown of the type of complaints as they fit into those 4 categories of how many you're receiving?
This is Dave Fote. Yeah, we could do like a sampling. I think that would be helpful. We can also track them by the opening violation code. So if you'd like us to do that, maybe for 30 to 60 days, we could provide you that information.
I think that would be helpful just to make sure that, based on the complaints that you're receiving and based on the way that we categorize it, that we are covering what we need to cover. So that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Mr. Chair, this is Rick. If I can just jump in, I'm being told that Marlo has joined us. She may be on the telephone. So if you don't mind, if I can just take a second and open up our phone lines just to see if I can find Marlo on this so she can participate. So if you can just stand by 1 second, please.
Absolutely.
Okay, Marlo Richardson, if you are on the phone, can you please go ahead and start speaking so I can find out where you are?
Marlo is here. Can you hear me?
Okay, good. All right, I found it. Did you have any comments for this item?
No comment.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, moving on to our next agenda item, which is item D. For the next agenda item, review, discussion, and possible action to amend CSLB's 2019 to 21 Enforcement Strategic Plan objectives. I'm going to turn it over to Chief of Enforcement, Missy Vickery. You here, Missy?
No, hi, Kevin. This is Jesse Flores.
Okay, I wasn't sure if she was able to make it. Jesse Flores, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jesse Flores, Deputy Chief of Enforcement. I report to Missy Vickery, who is out today. Kevin, thank you for your comprehensive overview of the many accomplishments of the Enforcement Division, despite the challenges that we have faced over the last several months. Chair Albanese has covered many of the updates that pertain to the Enforcement Strategic Plan objective, but I would like to just quickly touch on a few and add some highlights. Beginning on page 149, item number 2.1, formalize the disaster response program for greater efficiencies and to improve response time. This item is completed for the most part. We have a plan in place as was addressed and as mentioned earlier. Public Affairs will expand on the work that has been done in the disaster areas. Additionally, a written draft of the plan is being put in place together by Public Affairs and should be available shortly. Item number 2.2, educate the public about the complaint and investigative process, as well as available resources for financial redress. As noted, new contact letters that more thoroughly describe the complaint investigative process were updated in June of 2019. These letters are sent out to each party upon receipt of the complaint. We are also partnering with PAO, Public Affairs, on a video that will educate consumers on how to file a complaint. Item 2.3, in partnership with Public Affairs, develop and implement a plan to identify opportunities to increase publicity concerning enforcement action, including relaunch of CSLB's Most Wanted feature. As previously reported, we have relaunched the CSLB's Most Wanted feature on our website, and new suspects have been added as well as arrested. Upon commencement of the telecommuting due to COVID-19 restrictions, enforcement supervisors were encouraged to share complaint handling highlights with Public Affairs for potential development of press releases. This initiative resulted in press releases highlighting the Sheriff Monte investigated that resulted in criminal charges due to multiple violations declared in disaster areas. Chair Albanese also addressed 2.4 in detail and summary. Item 2.5, develop a program to improve complaint response by setting priorities and recognizing staff achievements. Supervising special investigators are required to submit a weekly report to enforcement leadership that includes highlights of the work being completed by staff. As a result of the comprehensive report, we look forward to recognizing 3 of our members at the December 2020 board meeting. Item 2.6, partnership with Public Affairs Office and Licensing Division, create online courses and content to educate licensees. As you can see in your packet, the partnership with Public Affairs and Enforcement completed the building permit training video. And we are now in the beginning stages of developing a webinar on video to educate contractors and home improvement salespersons about registering and home improvement contract requirements. This is particularly very important in the solar industry where the large companies and brokerages do not always fully understand the requirements and the applicable laws and regulations. 2.7, provide training opportunities to improve morale and staff knowledge. Chair Albanese previously shared the great training programs that we have implemented in detail. Item 2.8, prioritize proactive investigation of license requirements, protect the public and licensed contractors by removing unlicensed contractors from the marketplace. Again, Chair Albanese shared that great work that SWIFT does and what we're doing to address the unlicensed activity. And in conclusion, item number 2.9, attend job fairs to promote employment opportunities at CSLB. Prior to the pandemic, CSLB staff attended 2 job fairs at Sacramento State University in September of 2019 and February 2020 to promote both CSLB vacancies as well as the path to becoming a licensed contractor. As Kevin noted earlier, the transition from enforcement representative to special investigator has improved the recruitment of those positions, which is exciting. Also, as you heard Mike Maliza mention about that the candidate pool that we now get to select from has been enhanced so much that our interviews and our candidates are coming and we're getting great quality people coming forward to seek employment with the CSLB. We also additionally identified some enforcement staff who will be performing outreach in various communities, as well as working with public affairs for virtual platform online. Okay, that's all. That concludes my update, Kevin.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jesse, for filling in for Missy. This again was an informational item. No action is required, but would like to see if there's any committee member comment or public member comment. Seeing and Rick, did you have somebody pop on?
No public comment here.
Fantastic.
Hey, Michael Mark might have his hand up.
Hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. I did not see that. Please, if that's the case, just unmute yourself and jump right in. Please go ahead.
All right. Yes, I had one question on item 2.4 in regards to social media and looking to see unlicensed contractors. Now, I guess my question is this: is it more of just looking at profiles to find individuals doing said work unlicensed, or are we looking for like sponsored posts of contractors who are unlicensed? Is that what we're doing? Does that make sense? The question.
Jesse, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Yes, that actually we're looking at all of that activity at any social media or any Facebook or all the social media content that includes whether someone's advertising or discussing whether or not they can be a contractor is being looked at by my enforcement team. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if there's a way to reach out to possibly these social media or companies and ask them to submit items to you directly. I don't know if that's something that we could do.
Do you want to add something, Dave? But I know that historically we have reached out and attempted to reach out, but yet here we are still. So we are actively pursuing these and doing the best.
If I could add to something, Jesse, Dave Fote. I know Rick Lopes may talk about a little bit during the Public Affairs Committee, but Public Affairs Office has been very strategic and diligent in reaching out to Nextdoor and a lot of different social media sites to try to educate them on license requirements. And we've had, for the most part, success. Where we haven't had a lot of success, though, would be through the Craigslist platform. But I think with this program has been successful because we routinely receive information from the public, industry partners and others regarding, say, a Facebook page where somebody is professing to have the ability to do work with employees, and yet they have no workers' comp or they have no contractor's license. The same thing with Nextdoor. When people are looking for a contractor and the neighbors say, well, I know somebody, and they provide names. Problem is that person that they provided doesn't have a contractor's license. So, from our standpoint, it's a real opportunity to, one, educate Nextdoor and some of these social media sites, but also to post information on these social media sites regarding license requirements, and then warn these folks that don't have a license. They can be brought into compliance. Depending on the level of evidence, we might issue a citation. So that's something our SWIFT unit has been able to focus on when they have been. We've been discouraging them from going out and performing their field work.
Thank you for that update.
Thank you very much, Dave and Jesse, and for the question, Michael. Any other comments from committee members or public?
No public comment.
Seeing and hearing none, there are no other items on the agenda for today. We are going to adjourn the Enforcement Committee meeting, and if Chair Love of the Public Affairs Committee would like to take a break, I'll leave that to her discretion. Do I have a motion to adjourn the Enforcement Committee?
Motion to adjourn. Johnny.
There is a motion and a second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Felice, can you call the roll, please? Kevin Albanese is an aye.
This is Tanya Corcoran. I'll jump in. We don't need to call roll. The motion is good enough, so we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Fantastic. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Tanya.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to Chair Love.
Thank you. Do we want to take a few minutes break? That I know there's some contractors out here. I don't want them to turn the blower on and you can't hear what I have to say. So maybe 5 minutes?
I'm okay with moving forward.
I'm ready.
Okay. Okay, is everyone ready to move forward then?
Yeah.
Okay, well, good morning. And at this time, it is 10:33. And I will call the meeting to order, the meeting of the Public Affairs Committee. I'm Diana Love, the committee chair. Please note that only board members who are members of the Public Affairs Committee may participate in this committee meeting. Other board members who are in attendance may observe but cannot ask questions or participate in the discussion. Claire Goldstein, can you please call roll and establish a quorum?
Sure. Diana Love,
Here.
Kevin Albanese,
Here.
Don Giarratano,
Here.
Michael Mark,
Here.
Marlo Richardson,
Here.
Johnny Simpson,
Here.
and Nancy Springer.
Here.
Okay, all committee members are here.
Thank you, Claire. For my chair's comments, I would like to note that today marks the final meeting for the chief of our Public Affairs Office, Rick Lopes. Rick has overseen the board's Public Affairs Office and all of our outreach efforts for the past 16 years. He starts a new chapter in his career next week when he takes over running the Communications Office at the California Department of Real Estate. I would like to congratulate Rick on his new role and to thank him for his 16 years and to also acknowledge the certificate of recognition that he was received earlier in this meeting. Well deserved. I know that other committee members have worked with Rick for much longer. If you would like to make any comments, please raise your hand and I'll be happy to call on you. Is there anyone that would like to say anything at this time?
Difficult.
Yeah, this is Kevin. I heard it in the earlier one, but anyway, Rick, I just wish you nothing but the best. You've been fantastic. Public Affairs lost two huge people, Rick and Jane, earlier in the year, and you guys you both did a fantastic job representing the board, representing us to consumers, which we are a consumer protection board, and it was a real honor working with you. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
This is Nancy. I'd just like to say, Rick, it's been such an extreme pleasure, and I do look forward to continuing to work with you. It's your new position. I'm sure we can find a way to still connect. But just the past 6-7 years working with you, the response of you and your staff with the wildfire and the disasters has been incredible. The different publications you put out, the way that you've been working with the social media and staying on top of that, keeping the website. These meetings, the conference meetings, and giving us the how-tos and the step-by-step, and I'm kind of dealing with all of us. And then just, even speaking at one of our building official annual business meetings and networking with our group is such an impact. You made an impact with me, and I appreciate that, and with my group. And I wish you the best. And thank you for all you did for CSLB. You'll be missed.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, Rick, on behalf of this committee and everyone at CSLB, thank you for all of your contributions over the past 16 years. We wish you and your family all the best. And is there anything that you would like to say briefly, Rick?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I would like to thank everybody, not only on this committee, but as everybody on the board. I made myself some notes and actually figured out that over the last 16 years, I've worked with 47 different board members. We've had more than 60 board meetings, probably another 20 public affairs committee meetings over the year, 3 registrars. I remember like yesterday when I was the newbie on the block, and board members have always been extremely supportive of the public affairs efforts. They understand the important role that we play and how a lot of the things we can do can help prevent complaints down the road and also help the consumers protect themselves. So there's been a lot of projects that we've done over the years, and you've noted many of those, and we'll talk about a few more of them during today's meeting. But the board, thank you for all of your support over the years, and to my staff, thank you for everything you've done too. We've had great staff over the years. I've been very proud of the fact that either everybody who's left my office since I've been here is either retired or gotten a promotion and gone somewhere else. So I take a lot of pride that we've been not only able to get good work out of them, but we've helped them grow in their careers. And so I'm really proud of that. And I do want to thank the registrar and the deputy registrar for all of their support over the years of our efforts. And I hope that will continue, and I'm sure it will continue down the road. And I'll just be across town, so I'm sure that we'll talk again in other situations, and I'm always around to assist. This is a place that's been close to my heart, and I'm still passionate about the consumer protection. So I'm glad that I'm going to be able to go to a different agency that has a very similar consumer protection goal. And I'm looking forward to the new challenge. And again, thank you for all of your support and well wishes.
Thank you, Rick. And moving into our next agenda item, which is item B, public comment. The public comment procedures are on page 159 in the meeting packet. The committee values public input as part of our consumer protection mission to allow us enough time to conduct our business. I'm limiting public comments to 3 minutes apiece. If your comments do not involve an item on today's committee agenda, this would be the time to make them. If you have a comment on one of our agenda items, please wait until we get to that item. We will give you a chance to address us at that time. There are a few other things to note. First, California law prohibits committee members from discussing any matters brought up during public comment. Also, we are not allowed to act on any item not on today's agenda. Finally, if you want the committee to discuss a topic on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on a future committee meeting agenda. Members of the public, if you joined us on WebEx and would like to make a comment at this time, either raise your hand or use the chat feature to send us a note that you would like to offer public comment. If you joined us by phone and would like to make a public comment, press *3 to raise your hand. We will use the same system throughout the meeting for public comment during each agenda item. Rick, at this time, are there any members of the public who have requested to address the committee?
No, Madam Chair, no comments at this time.
Okay. I will move into item C, an update and discussion on CSLB disaster response to 2020 wildfires. This item starts on page 161 of your meeting packet. This has been our 4th straight fall where we have had a series of devastating wildfires around California. 5 of the 6 biggest wildfires in the state history have taken place since August. Fires this fall are responsible for at least 31 deaths, destroying or damaging more than 9,200 structures and burning more than 4.1 million acres of land. CSLB dedicates a significant amount of resources to its post-disaster response, with a mission of protecting wildfire survivors from being victimized a second time by unlicensed or predatory contractors. Rick Lopes is going to share with us a summary of our efforts this fall, as well as how our post-disaster efforts since 2017 have helped keep down the number of disaster-related consumer complaints we have received. Rick, can you give us a disaster report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll be starting on page 163, and as the chair mentioned, it is a high priority for the board to focus on post-disaster, and we have dedicated significant resources over the years, especially over the last 3 years where the number of wildfires has really jumped. As you can see, I'm not going to go through all of our history, but it's been well over 30 years that CSLB has really made an effort on responding to post-disasters, going all the way back to many of the big earthquakes, the Loma Prieta earthquake in the late 90s. Things really expanded after 1994 in the Northridge earthquake. Those wildfires tend to have victims in a very closed area. Earthquakes tend to be spread out. So there was a lot of people around CSLB that did become involved because the outreach was such a wide area. So we've got a important history of being involved in the post disasters. Now, during the summer and fall of 2020, as the chair mentioned, CAL FIRES responded to almost 8,500 incidents, including large extended wildfires. And as you can see on the chart that we have on page 164, and this was put together probably about 3 weeks ago, so it's already changed a little bit. Fortunately, the fires have died down, but 5 of the 6 largest wildfires in California history have happened in the last 3 months. So fortunately, in some of those huge fires, they've been in fairly rural areas, so the number of structures destroyed has been lower than we saw a couple of years ago with the Camp Fire up in Paradise, and the year before with the Tubbs Fire and the other ones in the Santa Rosa and Napa Valley areas. Still, though, we've had destroyed or damaged almost 9,200 structures, so that's significant. And I know that Nancy Simpson, in her role as building official here in Sacramento and before in Butte County, we've worked together a lot on disaster responses, but she sees firsthand how what happens is when these disasters happen, they don't just go on for a couple of months and then you move on to something else. They continue. It takes years for the rebuilding efforts to get underway and to be successful. So our CSLB commitment isn't for just right after a wildfire. It does continue. We're still doing outreach in the Tubbs Fire up in Santa Rosa. As Jesse mentioned during the last meeting in enforcement, we did a press release with an enforcement action we took against a contractor, and I'll note that in a moment. But things do continue. So as we see more wildfires, the work for CSLB just continues to add up because we have additional fires that we have to reach out and respond to. So as you can see at the bottom of 164, the first step is always the local assistance centers. We've got a very good working relationship with the California Office of Emergency Services and FEMA. OES, the Office of Emergency Services, the first thing they'll do after a disaster, when there's a call from the local officials that they would like to have a local assistance center, those are set up. Those are one-stop shop for the wildfire survivors to come in and get everything from a new driver's license. They can get information about the county resources available to them, different state agencies. We partner closely with the Department of Insurance and others. And so in the past years, we've normally staffed every local assistance center with a person there every day. So every day the assistance center would be open, we would staff it. A big challenge and a strain on our resources is because these are often in rural areas, so we have to have people going back and forth from Sacramento or from one of our closest offices, because hotels and the like are being taken up by the wildfire survivors who've had to be evacuated. So there's a significant commitment to not only money but staff time, which does take them away from their other duties. One thing that has been different this fall is because of COVID, some of the LACs have actually been virtual, which has worked out well for us because we've been able to be in these places with materials without actually physically having to be there. So in some of those cases, that's been the situation. We have had some where the counties have specifically requested that we have staff. And so we've done two things. And the ones that we can staff, we may not be able to staff them every day, but we will have staff there for many days. And when we aren't, we had signs there at our table, and we set up a special secondary phone line. We do have a disaster hotline, a toll-free line that's available. It goes into our call center, but we set up a completely separate line that my staff monitored on a daily basis. So whenever the local assistance center was open, we monitored the phone line, and we were able and available to take any phone calls that came from anybody who showed up at the table and wanted information and couldn't get it. So we try to be creative in how we're able to still be there and be able to respond. What you can see on the top of page 165 is a list of the fires where there have been local assistance centers, and this has grown by a couple. There's been a couple additional wildfires where we've had staff at LACs over the last couple of weeks. But you can just see the sheer numbers, and on the right column there, you can see the ones that we either had in-person staffing, or we had materials only that we provided. The next element of our outreach has to do with boots on the ground, and a lot of this is done by our statewide investigative fraud team, or SWIFT. This is the disaster signs that we will go out and we will post in the area. And oftentimes they are going to partner with the Department of Insurance and usually the local district attorney's office. And they'll go out and do an education. They'll walk through the areas. They'll come across any contractors they see, give them information, encourage them to contact us if they see any unlicensed activity. If we happen to come across anybody unlicensed, then we're in a position to deal with that. But it really is focused a lot on education, letting the survivors know that there's help out there, that they're not alone when it comes to this, and trying to protect them from becoming victims a second time. So during the fires this fall, our SWIFT staff have placed hundreds of signs throughout the different fire areas. At the bottom of 165, we put this in place a couple of years ago with the first fires in the Napa and Santa Rosa area, but there are many times where our licensees are victimized. They have lost their homes. In some cases, they've lost their records, maybe their license. And so we've waived the fees for them to replace those materials. Another part that we're playing a role for us is there are different task forces that have been set up as the recovery effort starts. And there's two of them that CSLB is currently involved with. And my staff and also Mike Jimnetsky from our Ledge office has been involved. One of those is a debris task force. One of the unusual things by having so many fires this fall, normally the Office of Emergency Services would have one huge task force where all the different areas would be involved, and local counties are also involved. There'd be regular conference calls and working on all the elements that have to deal with, in this case, debris, and then there's another one, housing. It's the same thing. But because there were so many fires in such a short amount of time in many different parts and counties around the state, what they've done, OES, is broken it down into, I believe, 6 or 7 different task forces. So I've already been on the lines with one of them, done presentations, made our information available. I've reached out and presented our information to the other one. So they're working and getting that information out to the county. We've already had some of the counties contact us with questions. And so that outreach has worked well. And that works out well for us because it also gives us the ability to kind of keep an eye on what's happening with the debris cleanup. What normally happens is OES and sometimes with FEMA, they'll put together a debris cleanup program that the homeowners can opt into to have the state program take care of the cleanup of the debris from their property, or they can choose to opt out and do the debris cleanup themselves or hire somebody. Obviously, you need to have a contractor's license. So we've got materials that go into that, what kinds of things they need to look for, what kind of license classifications in order to do the debris cleanup. So we've got those materials that we have available on the website.